Hello there guys, welcome today to yesterday's news at some point when I got to it, because that's how I'm going to be doing the news for you guys. I will be doing the news in simple and easy ways for everyone to just get little snippets with my own little input in it to hopefully have a little fun while we educate ourselves on the situations that are going on around us. In today's world, this is 4/24 today, we have a couple of things that may have happened that might interest you. Let's jump right into them, shall we? So the first story I have for you guys today is Donald Trump. He's in the news again, and this time for having some fun with reporters. Whether he's being truthful or not, that is for you to decide. I have all the news articles posted down below in the comments, but with this one, it's a little interesting and you might want to watch the video to get a full context for it. As he was in an interview with the press, he was noted as saying that maybe we could look into injecting people with Lysol or other disinfectants. I can't say that one with a straight face. Injecting ourselves with disinfectants for hopefully purposes of cleaning up the virus. I personally don't think he's being serious. He's come out into the news saying he's not being serious. He's been known to come up with ideas on the spot, whether they're ridiculous or not, but it's out there. So there are now press releases with him saying and looking at his staff saying, why aren't we doing research into this, looking into it and injecting people with disinfectants to clean up the viruses. Of course, you have people in the media that can't tell if he's being serious or not, freaking out, looking at him going like, and he continues to double down on these ideas. Now, multiple news outlets have come out and said, yes, this is what he said. Does he mean it? Has he lost his marbles? I think he must have been either A, spitballing as he does many times on the news, probably not where he should be spitballing, or B, sarcastic. Just good old sarcasm and satire towards the media. Is the time for it? Maybe not. That's for you to choose. However, it was done. This has led on to a variety of different companies coming out and saying things like, please do not use our products such as Lysol or bleach to try to self-treat or medicate for the virus. Won't work, will kill you. And if we have anything we have learned from an Arizona couple a couple of weeks ago, if you start to try to treat yourself, especially with disinfectants, detergents, or fish medication, it can and probably will kill you. Please don't do stupid things. Use some common sense. Don't do those things. The fact that it has to be posted on the news or on Twitter by big companies, do not drink our cleaning products, astounds me. But it is what it is. It's 2020, nothing makes sense. If I had the receipt, I'd be returning this year by now. In other news, we have oil and the price of it. If anyone has noticed, gasoline's really cheap lately, and oil in general has been really cheap lately. Now there's a reason for all of that. That reason is oil futures. Oil futures are when companies or investors put out contracts for future purchases of oil, and they guarantee and lock themselves into a price point so that they get a bargain on it and companies get the money ready for it. So they know they have a buyer, the product's ready to be sold. Awesome. We have contracts now set for that. Now, among all of this, with all these future purchases put into place, we've had an oil war going on. So you had Russia fighting with the Middle East, trying to make sure who can outproduce who. Now, in this war, they've been basically producing more oil than is necessary or that there is demand for, especially in this time where no one's really driving or doing anything. So you have now a bunch of supply, but there's no demand, driving prices down. And now that everyone, especially in Russia and the Middle East, are driving prices of oil down by continuing to overproduce oil, these future contracts that were sitting in place are now coming due. Now, that's great in some ways. You have these oil barrels at really cheap prices, but now that nobody's buying it up or using it up, we run into an issue. That issue being storage. Where do you put all this oil? I don't know, and apparently neither do a bunch of investors, because nobody has anywhere to put it. It has crashed the price of oil into the negatives. Why is it negative? Because people are willing to give you amazing prices on oil so they don't have to store it somewhere. That's why the prices are negative. Why are they trying to put these prices so low? They're trying to drown out competition. Ultimately, Russia, Middle East, some of the big oil players want to make sure that when things do stabilize, everything is in their benefit. How do you do that? Drive other smaller players out of the market. Now, the US is historically really good at producing its own oil. We can do it at really competitive prices. Approximately costs us $23 a barrel at this current market. And when you start making and producing oil at less than $23 a barrel, it starts to cost us money. There is no demand for it currently. Well, not as much demand as there usually is, so that becomes a huge problem. What is going to happen? Could be a lot of things. This affects us in a few ways. In the short term, we are going to have really cheap gasoline with nowhere to really use it. You're going to have a lot of smaller companies going bankrupt because they cannot fund and keep funding this oil that is below their own cost and selling it at those prices. You're also going to have, sorry, I got Remington over here doing little things. What's up, Remington? You're also going to have oil prices continue to stay driven low because of this war that is just being settled out. They actually came to an agreement between Russia and the Middle East via OPEC about a week or two ago. But we still have this overproduction that needs to be dealt with. We actually are using container ships now to just hold oil out at sea, doing nothing. It's floating there because investors don't have anywhere to put it. Now, in the US, we also have our own storage reserves that we use to put oil in, kind of like a battery for oil when it's not being used. Those reserves are currently filling up at unprecedented levels. That being said, as oil stabilizes, we do hope that an agreement is made so that everything calms down. It will unfortunately mean that oil prices do go back. Oh, hello there, Remington! I've got Remington here. She wanted to be part of the news. Isn't that right, Remington? As I was saying, once markets stabilize, we will be able to regroup as a country, and that I mean different companies that produce oil and hopefully find a way to distribute oil back in a way that is in equilibrium with demand and supply. How does this all affect you? The good news is in the short term, you are going to get really, really cheap gasoline prices. You can fill up your tank, you can store some if you need to. The only problem is that you have nowhere to drive to because most people are still in quarantine. So the initial short-term benefits are nice, especially when people have less money expendable to them, especially when people aren't doing road trips and things of that nature. So we have a lot of product at cheap prices, but there's nowhere to use it with. So take that for what you will. It's kind of good, kind of bad. You get some cheap gasoline in the meantime. However, the long-term ripple effects for us are going to be that if these companies do not stabilize product and demand, you're going to see a lot of our smaller American companies going bankrupt. And that we can say thank you to other vendors from across the world that are refusing to back down, especially in this crisis. In other semi-local news, we have some interesting characters that said some interesting things on live TV where they shouldn't have been said because you need to vet things. So, we had the mayor of Las Vegas, Ms. Carolyn Goodman, went on Anderson Cooper's CNN show to talk about the state of our country, the state of Las Vegas, or of Nevada, and the city of Las Vegas, and if things are ready to be opened again. She went on record saying that Las Vegas, in her opinion, would be a great place to try and test out and see if businesses and the economy in general is ready to be opened up. Anderson Cooper didn't take to this very well, questioned her, and she doubled down on the fact that she'd like to see businesses in Las Vegas opened up again to see and act as a control group. And this didn't go over well. So, we have Anderson Cooper at this point kind of freaking out at the fact that she's offering her people as sacrifice in some ways to see if everything is ready, if the virus has gone away or not. She went ahead and doubled down on this idea by saying, yes, we can be the control group. That's what they do in science. Science needs a control group, and Las Vegas would be a great place to try that in. This did not go over well with her people, as well as the governor of Nevada, since he did eventually step in publicly and say that no, Nevada will not be used as a petri dish or control group to experiment on people, citizens, on if things are ready to be reopened yet. So she has doubled down on this statement. The governor of Nevada is not having it, and hopefully he will be overriding her rule on that one. this whole thing sounds like a farce. It's ridiculous to think that someone would promote their area or their people, citizens, as a time to just, let's play jazz on this one. Let's experiment and see how people do. That being said, I understand the pressure that she is under as a business owner myself. She wants to make sure their economy continues. I can only imagine the billions of dollars they are losing right now because they have people out of work, you have people applying for welfare, and basically AIDS everywhere. You have major companies with major bankrolls or payrolls that are just not being funded right now. So while I understand where she is coming from on this one, it is absolutely ridiculous, in my opinion, to just offer up her citizens, at least without at least taking a vote. See if your people want to open up right now and get a majority, or negotiating different options with the people on if it's time to open up your city or your state. In the meantime, the governor has put a kibosh on that, and in some ways almost called her crazy for offering that. But here we are. That's a fun one. Interesting characters saying interesting things without people vetting them. Keeping on the topic of business, we have Sir Richard Branson in the news, and if you're not familiar with who he is the founder and chairman of Virgin Group. He is in the news lately because he has recently posted his own personal private island, Necker Island, as collateral for potential bank loans and funding that he's going to need to hopefully fund his airline, Virgin Atlantic. Virgin Atlantic has been one of the major companies that have been affected by the virus, and it is currently suffering just like most other airlines are. Delta, American Airlines, just to name a few, as well as Southwest. What he's personally doing is putting up his own personal assets to hopefully protect the jobs of the people that he employs. Now, this isn't the first time he has gone out on a limb to risk his own personal assets to protect his companies, but because it is in his nature, he has now put up his biggest asset so far personally, his own personal home retreat, his Necker Island. So if you're not familiar with Virgin Atlantic, it's a company he actually founded in 1984 in the middle of a lobby at an airport when he had a different airline company cancel his flight. He literally called up a charter company, booked an airplane, grabbed a sign, put Virgin Airlines or Virgin Atlantic on it, and brought down the cost of each seat by simply booking other people to fly with him on that flight. So that was founded in 1984. He is now trying to rescue it due to these issues from the COVID-19 virus. So this, in my opinion, is a perfect example of what business people should be trying to do in times like this. I, as a small business owner, will gladly put up my own assets and collateral if I need to fund my business, if I need to pay employees and make sure that everyone is employed and still making a paycheck during hard times. I want to applaud Richard Branson on that one for doing just the most fantastic thing you can do for your employees. In government news, we have another update on the Payment Protection Program. We have an update on that. It looks like Congress has approved another $484 billion to be added to the funding program, which has notably gone dry less than a week ago. There were many businesses that have applied, got lost in the clutter, and received nothing of that much needed stimulus package. That being said, it has been passed through Congress. It is now going to Trump's front desk, essentially, his Oval Office desk, to be signed into law. Once that is done, that payment should start being funded back to the banks, in which have put a lot of people on hold. So we will see where that goes with it. Now, that plan was passed through Congress with notably a majority, with 5 people being left as nays instead of yays. So one of those people being AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I struggle with that one myself. She said, in this case, she would continue to vote no for this plan because it seems to be a more permanent solution, whereas she sees this as an interim, immediate plan of action. For her to sign off on something, she needs it to be much bigger, have a lot more money in it, and be more of a permanent solution for the people that are really desperate in needing these finances. Now, from that $484 billion, $310 billion of those will be used to continue funding that program. The rest of that will be used for the regular BS that they throw into all these bills and laws. The rest from that's not filched and stolen for God knows what, will be used to fund hospitals as well as more testing for American citizens. So, There's a lot of good things that will be going into this bill. It'll hopefully be signed into law fairly soon here, as Trump does seem very eager into signing more protection and financing packages for American citizens. So I will update you guys as that gets updated to me. As a bit of a bonus, we have my personal thoughts on this. I know there have been some rumors going around there may be a second stimulus package with more checks being sent out to people. That is a rumor for the moment. I know that there's also been a rumor about considering doing a universal basic income. This was something that was put out in one of the presidential debates by one of the presidential candidates. It's out there, it's a thought. I don't believe it'll be going through, especially with how much money has been spent lately. Our country has been spending like nobody's business. So my personal thoughts on this, it's a lot of money. I think it's being mismanaged. I think they're doing a lot of this for PR. They're throwing out whatever they can to appease constituents, to appease the citizens of our country, which yes, it's gonna be helpful, but we're not looking at the long-lasting ramifications of what this money is going to do, as it's only adding to our national debt. Now, as far as my thoughts on opening up our country, again, I think it's a little ridiculous, it's a little too soon. We need a lot more funding for testing. We also need to keep ourselves away at home. Businesses do need to focus on how to bring in more business without interacting with customers directly. And I'm saying this as a business owner who has had a heck of a hard time getting customers to interact with. I am considered essential, but that doesn't mean that I get a pass on these things. I also need to work on making sure we have fewer interactions with customers one-on-one, but more meaningful interactions with customers via Skype, Zoom, our phones, and continue our economy moving. That being said, with no notable links that I'll be posting for this one, I have seen that our unemployment rate has gone up to over 20%. We are getting desperately close to that 25%, which would be a quarter of our country out of work. This is going to have a lasting ripple effect that I think needs to be addressed in some way, and it needs to be addressed very, very soon. That has been the news that I felt was important for people, especially in business, to look at and notice. If you guys have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. Please subscribe. I will be trying to put out a few videos every week. They will be yesterday's news at some point today, whenever I get a chance to do them for you. If you want me to cover over certain things or elaborate on certain things, also leave a comment down below. Feel free to subscribe, and I will leave links to everything I've gone over down below. Till then, I will see you next time. The Burrito Bandito out.